After I built a $45 million company alone, my parents returned, demanding I repay them despite years of ignoring me, so I gave them the answer they deserved. The birthday candles flickered in the dim restaurant lighting, casting dancing shadows across the untouched glass of Cabernet before me. I checked my phone for the 11th time in 30 minutes. Still nothing. My fingernail tapped against the screen, creating a rhythm that matched the growing ache in my chest. "Should we wait a bit longer for your guests, Miss Lewis?" I glanced up to find the waiter hovering at my table's edge, sympathy etched into the fine lines around his eyes. His gaze flickered between the 4 empty chairs surrounding me and the small cake centered on the white tablecloth. "Just another 15 minutes, please," I said, summoning a smile that felt brittle on my face. It was the 3rd time I had requested an extension, and we both knew what that meant. I smoothed down the front of my emerald silk blouse, the one I had splurged on last week specifically for tonight. The fabric whispered beneath my fingertips, cool and expensive. Behind the waiter, couples murmured and laughed, silverware clinked against china, and somewhere a cork popped from a bottle. The sounds of celebration swirled around me while I sat marooned on my island of solitude. 2 weeks ago, I had booked this table at Ellison's, downtown Denver's newest culinary hotspot. I had been riding the high of finally securing $1.2 million in angel investment for Verdant Alchemy Company, my natural skincare startup. After 3 years of 18-hour workdays and second mortgaging my condo, someone finally believed in my vision. Family dinner at Ellison's to celebrate my birthday and some big news. I had texted the family group chat, Thursday at 7. "I'll make reservations for 5. 3 days passed with no response. I sent a friendly reminder, just confirming dinner this Thursday at Ellison's. Let me know if you can make it. Another 2 days of silence. Finally, my 3rd message, reserved table for 7 p.m. Thursday, hope to see everyone there. Nothing. Not from Mom, Dad, or Theodore. My throat tightened as I sipped water, the ice cubes clinking against my teeth. This shouldn't surprise me. It was the same pattern that had played out my entire life. When I was 16 and Theodore was 14, Dad took him fishing in Montana for 2 weeks. When I asked why I wasn't invited, Dad had patted my head and said, "He's a boy, he needs investment, you just need stability." That stability apparently meant co-signing Theodore's $18,000 motorcycle loan when I was 22, fresh out of college with student loans hanging over my head. 6 months later, when he stopped making payments, I covered them rather than let my credit score collapse. Dad had thanked me with a distracted nod while helping Theodore install custom pipes on the bike. I took another sip of water, willing away the tightness in my throat. My family had always been there for me, just not in the ways that mattered, not in ways that made me feel seen. "Excuse me." I looked up from my glass to find a man standing beside my table, tall, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind tortoiseshell glasses. He wore a charcoal suit that looked tailor-made for his broad shoulders. "I don't mean to intrude," he said, his voice warm and rich, "but I couldn't help noticing it might be your birthday." He gestured toward the small cake with its unlit candles. My fingers clenched around the stem of my wine glass. "It is. May I wish you a happy birthday, then?" I should have politely dismissed him. Instead, I heard myself say, "Thank you." He hesitated, then asked, "Would you mind if I joined you for a moment, just until your other guests arrive?" Something in his expression, genuine kindness without pity, made me nod. "I'm Farah, Alexander." He settled into the chair across from me, setting his leather portfolio on the table. "I'm a writer. Books about resilience, mostly." He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Though I suspect you know something about that already." "What makes you say that? The way you hold yourself? Like someone who's familiar with waiting and disappointment but hasn't been broken by either?" My laugh surprised me. "Are you always this perceptive with strangers? Occupational hazard." He gestured toward the waiter, who approached with a lighter. "May I?" When I nodded, the waiter lit the candles on my cake. Their glow reflected in Alexander's glasses as he asked, "So what brought you here tonight, all dressed up and waiting so patiently?" I hesitated, then decided truth was simpler than fiction. I just secured a major investment for my company, thought my family might want to celebrate. "Ah," he nodded, understanding blooming in his expression. "And they're running late? They're not coming." The words tasted bitter, like coffee left too long on the burner. They didn't even respond to my messages. "Then they're missing something extraordinary." Alexander leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "Tell me about this company that earned such impressive investment." For a moment, I considered changing the subject. Then something inside me shifted. Why not enjoy this birthday despite my family's absence? Why not share my triumph with someone who actually seemed interested? Verdant alchemy, I said, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. Natural skincare products made with ingredients sourced from sustainable farms. I pulled out my phone, showing him our sleek website featuring our best-selling facial serum. We're planning to expand our production facilities with the new funding. Remarkable, Alexander said, studying the images. When he looked up, his admiration felt like sunshine after days of rain. Someone should be celebrating your brilliance tonight. His words unlocked something in my chest. As I blew out the candles on my cake, I made a different wish than I had planned. Not for my family's approval, but for the strength to stop waiting for it. I won't wait for their approval anymore, I whispered, more to myself than to Alexander. The hardest lesson, he said softly, is learning that some people can't give what they don't possess themselves. The waiter returned with 2 plates for the cake. As I cut into it, I found myself telling Alexander about Theodore's motorcycle, about decades of showing up for a family that rarely showed up for me, about building my company while my parents focused on my brother's series of failed ventures. The strange thing is, I said, I think a part of me still loves them, despite everything. Love and boundaries aren't mutually exclusive, Alexander replied. In fact, the healthiest love requires them. As we shared cake beneath the restaurant's warm lights, I realized that a stranger's kindness had made this birthday more meaningful than any family celebration could have. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, and suddenly, that was enough. Morning sunlight spilled across my balcony, turning the rim of my coffee cup golden as I breathed in the crisp Boulder air. The distant flatirons cut jagged silhouettes against a cloudless sky. 3 years had passed since that birthday night when Alexander first entered my life. And the universe had rewarded my quiet determination with abundance. My phone chirped with a notification, another share of yesterday's interview where I detailed Verdant Alchemy's journey from my kitchen counter to a $35 million valuation. The view count had crossed 500,000. I took a slow sip of coffee, savoring the Colombian roast Alexander had introduced me to last winter. The new face of natural beauty, read one comment. If only they knew how unnatural family could be. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call. The name made my stomach clench. Mom. We had barely spoken in 3 years, beyond obligatory holiday texts and the occasional stilted coffee meeting. I considered letting it go to voicemail but slid my finger across the screen instead. Farah, honey. Her voice dripped with sugary sweetness I hadn't heard since high school graduation. Did you see my messages? No, I was just... Theodore's getting married. Can you believe it? Our boy finally settling down with Jessica. We'd love your help with planning the celebration. I gripped the phone tighter. That's wonderful news. When's the wedding? June. Listen, sweetheart, we've been talking, your father and I, and we think this would be the perfect time for a Lewis family collaboration. Collaboration? The word hung between us like a fragile glass ornament. Your brand with our family name. Lewis Beauty has such a nice ring. We've always been your biggest supporters. The lie stung more than if she had slapped me. I stared at the Forbes magazine on my coffee table featuring my company profile. I need to think about that, I managed, my professional voice sliding into place like armor. Of course, honey. Call me back this afternoon? After we disconnected, another message chimed. Theodore. Hey sis. Big news about the wedding. Also, my racing team needs a primary sponsor. Only $300,000 for the season. Great exposure for Verdant. Let me know. I placed my phone face down on the table. The view from my penthouse suddenly felt isolating rather than peaceful. Later that morning, I sat in my office reviewing old family photos stored in a dusty folder on my laptop. Theodore receiving his high school diploma, Mom and Dad beaming beside his first racing car. My college graduation, just me, alone in cap and gown, because they had attended Theodore's regional race that weekend. My phone chimed with a voice message from Alexander. Just saw your interview. Brilliant as always. Remember who you became despite them, not because of them. Dinner tonight? I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it Family Financial History. Line by line, I documented every loan, gift, and bailout. Theodore's motorcycle, the 6 months of his rent I covered when he found himself after dropping out of community college. Dad's fishing boat repairs when Theodore crashed it during a weekend joyride. The spreadsheet swelled to $47,000 of silent support. This isn't about punishment, I whispered to the empty office. It's about boundaries. My CFO Martin knocked before entering with quarterly reports. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing my expression. "Family matters. If my brother or parents reach out about business opportunities or sponsorship, please direct them to me." Martin nodded. "Legally speaking, you have no obligation to entangle family with the company." "I know," I said, thanking him as he left. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel, my oldest friend, saw Theodore's FB post about needing sponsors. "Let me guess, he's hitting you up. They didn't celebrate you." "Why fund them?" I smiled despite myself. Rachel always cut to the heart of things. A card arrived via courier later that afternoon. Alexander's distinctive handwriting graced the envelope. Inside, a quote, "Boundaries aren't walls. They're the foundation upon which healthy relationships are built." By evening, I had crafted an email that felt both businesslike and final. I attached the spreadsheet, detailing the $47,000 in financial support I had provided over the years. "If we're going to collaborate," I wrote, "let's start from zero with full transparency." I hesitated before pressing send, wondering if I was being too harsh. Then I remembered my 29th birthday candles flickering in an empty restaurant while my family didn't even bother to respond to my messages. My finger tapped the screen. Mother's reply arrived within minutes, explosive and familiar. "How dare you talk like that? Didn't we raise you to be grateful, after everything we've done for you?" I took a deep breath and typed my response. Each word a quiet declaration of freedom. I was grateful in silence, in money, in tears. Now I'm grateful to myself for finally stopping. When Alexander arrived for dinner, he found me on the balcony watching stars emerge above the Flatirons. He didn't ask about my day. He simply stood beside me, his presence a ballast against the storm of emotions. "They want to use me," I said finally, "not celebrate me." "And what do you want?" he asked, his voice gentle. I turned to face him, feeling stronger than I had in years. To stop confusing obligation with love. He smiled, taking my hand. "Then that's exactly what you'll do." As we headed inside, my phone chimed with more messages from my family. For the first time in my life, I left them unanswered. A week later, the receptionist's voice crackled through my office intercom, interrupting my quarterly projections meeting. "Miss Lewis, your mother and brother are here. They say it's urgent." My marketing director raised an eyebrow across the conference table. 5 other executives paused their note-taking, pens hovering over leather-bound portfolios. "Tell them I'm in a meeting," I replied, forcing a professional smile. "I'll be out shortly." The intercom clicked again. "They insist on waiting. They brought cake?" A familiar tension coiled at the base of my neck. My family had never visited during the 3 struggling years when I worked 16-hour days in a cramped one-room office. Now that verdant alchemy occupied the entire 4th floor of a downtown building with our name on the directory, they had discovered an urgent need to see me. 10-minute break, everyone," I announced, setting down my presentation pointer with deliberate calm. "Greg, prepare the distribution figures for when we resume." In the reception area, Mother held a bakery box with both hands like a peace offering. Her hair was freshly colored, the rich auburn she had maintained since her 40s, and her cream-colored blazer likely cost more than my first month's rent. Theodore stood beside her, hands jammed in the pockets of designer jeans, a calculated casual look that probably cost more than most people's formal wear. "Surprise," Mother trilled, lifting the cake box slightly. "We thought we'd stop by and celebrate your Forbes feature. No hard feelings about missing your calls lately." The receptionist watched with undisguised curiosity. 2 packaging designers glanced over from the break room. "How thoughtful," I said, maintaining my composure while acutely aware of my staff watching this performance. "Let's talk in the conference room." Mother's eyes swept across our modern workspace, taking inventory of the exposed brick walls, the Edison bulb lighting fixtures, the sleek workstations where my team created products that had earned us shelf space in luxury department stores across America. Theodore trailed behind us, pausing to examine a display case holding our best-selling facial serum. "You must be making a fortune from these little things," he remarked, tapping the glass. My marketing director emerged from her office, coffee mug in hand. Jessica," Theodore said, flashing the smile that had charmed his way through college. "Don't you look fantastic? Still handling my sister's advertising?" "Director of Brand Strategy now," Jessica replied, her professional smile never wavering. "Pleasure seeing you again, Theodore." I guided them toward the small conference room, away from curious eyes and ears. Mother ran her fingertip along a walnut tabletop as we entered. $16,000 for this table alone, I'd wager, she whispered, not quite quietly enough. Once the door closed behind us, I turned to face them. This is my workplace, not a family reunion venue. Why are you really here? Mother set the cake down, hurt flashing across her features. Can't we visit our successful daughter without an agenda? Theodore sprawled in one of the leather chairs. Yeah, sis, don't be so suspicious. The last time we spoke, I reminded him. You asked for $300,000 for your racing team. The time before that, Mother hinted about Theodore's wedding costs. Forgive me for suspecting this isn't just a social call. Mother's expression hardened. You've changed. Success has made you cold. I haven't changed, I countered, remaining standing while they sat. I've just stopped pretending. Theodore leaned forward. Come on, sis. We're family. That means something. The word family hung between us, weighted with expectations, with history, with the motorcycle loan I paid off while working 3 jobs, with birthdays spent alone while they attended Theodore's races. Yes, it does, I agreed, my voice steady. Family should mean love without invoices, support without conditions, celebration without calculation. Mother's eyes narrowed. After all we've sacrificed for you. What exactly did you sacrifice? The question escaped before I could filter it. When I needed CO signers for my first business loan, you said it was too risky. When I worked 18-hour days launching this company, you never once brought me cake. When I celebrated alone at Ellison's on my birthday, your phones were apparently all broken simultaneously. Theodore shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair. What's not fair is using family as currency, I interrupted. I don't need family only when I'm successful. I don't need cake only when there's something in it for you. We've always been proud of you, Mother insisted. But her eyes darted toward the door, calculating her next move. I believe you, I said, softening my tone slightly. But I've learned to live without pretending. I'll always love you both, but this company isn't a family ATM. My success doesn't create an obligation. Mother gathered her designer handbag, straightening her shoulders. I see we've caught you at a bad time. Any time you come with expectations rather than genuine support will be a bad time, I replied. They left with stiff goodbyes and promises to call later. Through the glass walls I watched them cross the reception area, Mother's back rigid with indignation, Theodore's stride betraying his frustration. When the elevator doors closed behind them, I exhaled fully for what felt like the first time in an hour. My phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Coffee after your ambush? Proud of you for standing your ground. Word traveled fast. Rachel must have heard from Jessica. Another text arrived from my business partner, taking the afternoon meetings. Take some time if needed. 10 minutes later, my mentor called. How are you holding up? She asked, her voice carrying the wisdom of someone who had navigated similar waters. Better than expected, I answered truthfully. That evening, I drafted an email declining Theodore's wedding invitation, attaching a generous but appropriate gift card. I created clear guidelines for future communications with my parents. My financial advisor helped establish a trust for genuine family emergencies, not demands. When I finished, I poured a glass of Cabernet and stood at my condo window overlooking Boulder's twinkling lights. For the first time, I understood that boundaries aren't walls built from anger. They're fences constructed with self-respect. Later that night, my phone pinged with a notification. Theodore's Facebook status glowed on my screen. Some people only care about money, not family. Already, mutual friends were tagging me, the gossip spreading like wildfire. My finger hovered over the keyboard, a dozen responses forming and dissolving in my mind. Then Alexander's text arrived. Remember, your truth doesn't need defending. I set my phone down, choosing dignity over defensiveness. The chapter of apologizing for my boundaries had ended. The story of living with integrity had only begun. 2 days after the confrontation, the cursor blinked on my screen, mocking me. I had typed and deleted the same response 14 times. Theodore's Facebook post glared at me from my laptop. Some people only care about money, not family. Blood used to mean something. I exhaled slowly, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The knot in my stomach tightened as friends tagged me in comments, asking if there was family drama happening. 3 college acquaintances had already messaged asking if I was okay. The living room window framed Boulder's mountains, bathed in early morning light. I had been sitting here since 5 a.m., nursing coffee gone cold, thinking about legacies and lies. I typed carefully, reading each word twice before moving to the next. Family isn't a debt. It's a place where love should be unconditional. I hope everyone finds that place, including me. My thumb hovered over post for 8 seconds before pressing down. Done. No lengthy explanation, no accusations, just truth. Within minutes, notifications flooded my phone. Friends from business school, former colleagues, even my third-grade teacher who had somehow found me on social media years ago. Stay strong, Farah. Been there. You're handling this with such grace. This resonates deeply. Thank you for your honesty. I set my phone face down on the coffee table, breathing into the silence of my apartment. Strange how 15 words could feel like shedding a 100-pound backpack. The landline rang, the number I give only to business associates and close friends. Rachel's voice came through, warm and steady. I saw your post. You okay? Better than I expected. I curled deeper into my armchair, watching a hummingbird dart around my balcony feeder. It feels clean. Clean is good. Rachel paused. Theodore's gone nuclear in the family group chat. Your mother called me this morning asking if I could talk some sense into you. My laugh came out sharper than intended. And what did you tell her? That you made perfect sense already. The smile in Rachel's voice faded. Listen, they're calling around. Your father phoned James from the Chamber of Commerce breakfast group. The hummingbird froze mid-air, then zipped away as a shadow passed. Trying to damage control by rewriting history? Pretty much. Something about how they've supported your business from day one, but you've grown distant since becoming successful. I pressed my fingertips against closed eyelids until stars appeared. 22 investors believed in my company before my parents did. They never even asked what Verdant Alchemy made until the Forbes feature. I know, honey, just giving you the heads up. Oh, and your mother's church prayer group got an earful about her troubled daughter who's forgotten her values. The familiar weight settled back between my shoulder blades. Right on schedule. After Rachel's call, I showered and dressed carefully. Forest green silk blouse, tailored black pants, simple gold earrings, armor for the day ahead. My assistant Emma met me at the office door, coffee extended like a shield. 3 calls from someone named Theodore. Should I keep blocking? Yes, please. I accepted the coffee with a grateful nod. Any messages from investors? Emma's expression shifted. Mr. Harrington from Keystone Capital called. Said your brother contacted him with concerns about company stability. He seemed confused. Heat flashed across my face, my fingers tightening around the cup. Theodore actually contacted my investors? The boundary violation staggered me. Call Mr. Harrington back immediately. Schedule a lunch if he's available. 2 hours later, I sat across from James Harrington at Ellison's, the same restaurant where this journey began 3 years ago. The irony didn't escape me. I appreciate your time, I began, meeting his gaze directly. I understand my brother contacted you. James nodded, leaning back in his chair, his gray eyebrows knit together. Said something about family troubles affecting business decisions. Wanted to warn me. He studied me over his reading glasses. Not very professional. No, I agreed. Family and business are separate entities in my world, James. Always have been. Good. He unfolded his napkin with deliberate care. The quarterly reports speak for themselves, Farah. 28% growth doesn't lie. The knot in my stomach loosened slightly. Thank you for your continued confidence. Your brother seemed entitled to your success. James chose his words carefully. Mentioned something about family collaboration being owed to him. Owed. I didn't flinch. There will be no collaboration. Smart call. He picked up his menu. Now, shall we order? I hear the salmon is excellent. Back at the office, I pulled up the application form for the Verdant Foundation, my newest project supporting young female entrepreneurs. The cursor blinked, steady now, rather than mocking. I filled in the final details, then pressed launch. Later that evening, I received the notification that my donation to the Colorado Motorcycle Safety Initiative had been processed. $20,000, anonymous. No press release. No social media announcement. Just quiet action. My phone buzzed with a message from my father. Your mother is devastated. This public humiliation is beneath you, Farah. I set the phone aside without responding and poured a glass of wine. The Verdant Foundation website had already received 12 applications. My inbox contained 3 interview requests from business journals, none mentioning family drama, all focused on company growth and environmental initiatives. When the doorbell rang at 7, Alexander stood there holding takeout bags. His eyes crinkled at the corners. Thought you might not want to go out tonight. You thought right. I stepped aside to let him in. Theodore contacted my investors. Alexander set the food down, his expression darkening. That crosses every line. They didn't buy it, I said, pulling plates from the cabinet. Turns out consistent professionalism speaks louder than desperate accusations. Of course it does. Alexander unpacked containers of Thai food. Your restraint is remarkable, Farah. Most people would have responded with matching fire. I shrugged, but warmth bloomed in my chest at his words. Fire just makes more smoke. I'm interested in clarity. We ate on the balcony, watching the sunset paint Boulder's mountains in amber and gold. My phone buzzed repeatedly, Theodore's fiancé now, saying they needed to clear the air before the wedding. Did you see the comment from Sandra Werner? Alexander asked, refilling my wine glass. Theodore's racing sponsor? No. What did she say? That she's reconsidering their partnership after recent revelations about character. He raised an eyebrow. Apparently your mother's version of events reached her but backfired. I took a slow sip of wine. I never asked for that. You didn't have to. Truth has a way of finding daylight. As night fell over Boulder, my email pinged with a message from my business mentor, Diane. Proud of you. Leading a webinar next month on ethical business practices. Keynote spot has your name on it if you want it. Later, as Alexander prepared to leave, he paused at the door. You know they're only escalating because they're losing control, right? I nodded. I know. I can feel the cracks forming. Your mother called Rachel again, apparently. Less confident this time. Used the phrase, might have pushed too hard. Something shifted inside me, not satisfaction exactly, but vindication. Did she now? And I ran into your father at the coffee shop this morning. He looked contemplative, said something about wishing they'd invested in your company from the beginning. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly tired. 3 years too late for that realization. Alexander touched my shoulder gently, but not too late for you to live your truth. After he left, I sat on the balcony in darkness. Laptop open to Theodore's latest group chat message. She's destroyed this family with her selfishness. Below it, a surprising response from his fiancée, Jessica. Maybe we should all step back and think about what we're asking from her? I closed the laptop without responding. Tomorrow would bring more accusations, more attempts to rewrite history. But tonight I had discovered that silence too can be strength. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply to keep building while others try to burn. The voicemail from Mother played for the 3rd time, her voice wavering with practiced vulnerability. Farah, sweetheart, I know things have been strained, but we're still your parents, no matter what. Some bonds can't be broken even when they stretch. I pressed delete and set my phone on the kitchen counter. The late sunshine spilled through my condo windows, painting warm rectangles across the hardwood floor. Against my better judgment, I picked up the envelope that had arrived yesterday, ivory cardstock with gold foil edging. Theodore's wedding invitation. The handwritten note tucked inside read, "Time for family healing. We miss you, Mom and Dad." My stomach twisted. 3 weeks of this campaign now. The carefully timed calls, the texts dripping with apologies that somehow still managed to avoid acknowledging any actual wrongdoing. Just yesterday, Theodore's fiancée Jessica had left a voicemail about building bridges before the big day. Is this seat taken? I looked up to find Alexander in my doorway, coat draped over his arm, a paper bag from Spruce Bakery in his hand. My shoulders relaxed at the sight of him. Only by ghosts and guilt trips, I said, sliding the invitation across the counter. Latest artillery in the reconciliation campaign. Alexander set down 2 coffees and studied the invitation. Quite the production. The wedding at the Brown Palace? Someone's parents are feeling generous. Or someone's sister is expected to be. I took a grateful sip of the coffee he had brought, dark roast with a splash of almond milk, exactly how I liked it. And what about these? Alexander gestured toward the stack of photo albums on my coffee table. Recent arrivals? FedEx delivery yesterday. Family albums dating back to my 5th birthday, complete with post-it notes marking special memories. I walked over and flipped one open to a flagged page. This one says, "Remember Christmas 1998? You were so excited about the family tradition." Subtle, Alexander said, his mouth quirking. My phone buzzed with another text. "Theodore, Dad mentioned his blood pressure's been high lately. Really hoping you'll reconsider coming to the wedding. Would mean a lot to all of us." Alexander caught my expression. More health concerns? Theodore says Dad's blood pressure is up. I set the phone down. Last week it was Mom's migraines. They're getting creative, Alexander noted, settling onto one of my kitchen stools. How are you holding up? I traced the rim of my coffee cup. I keep thinking I should feel worse about all this. Shouldn't I be torn apart, sobbing over photo albums at midnight? And you're not? I feel tired, like I'm watching a movie I've seen too many times. I met his eyes. Is that cold? Alexander considered this, the morning light catching the silver at his temples. I don't think it's cold. I think it's clarity. After years of the same pattern, you've stopped mistaking familiarity for obligation. I don't want to hate them, I said quietly. Boundaries aren't about hate, Alexander's voice gentled. They're about health. You can forgive someone without resuming the same relationship. Something shifted inside me at his words, a tightness loosening. Forgiveness without restoration. Exactly. You can acknowledge the love that exists while recognizing its limitations. Alexander sipped his coffee. What would a healthy relationship with your family actually look like? I had never really considered this question before. My options had always seemed binary, give them everything or sever all ties. But perhaps there was middle ground territory I could map myself. Limited contact, I began slowly. Scheduled interactions in neutral public places, no business entanglements, and clear expectations of mutual respect. Alexander nodded. That sounds reasonable, but will they accept it? Theodore's wedding is soon. The question isn't whether they'll accept it, Alexander said. It's whether you can enforce it regardless of their reaction. I straightened my shoulders. I can. Later that evening, with Alexander's perspective still fresh in my mind, I drafted an email to my family. No accusations, no itemized lists of past wrongs, just clear forward-facing boundaries. I outlined the terms under which I was willing to attend Theodore's wedding and maintain a relationship moving forward. When I finally clicked send, something shifted inside me, not the weightlessness of escape, but the solid certainty of choosing my own path. On the wedding day, I stood in the glittering ballroom of the Brown Palace Hotel, a glass of champagne cooling my palm. The wedding ceremony had concluded 30 minutes ago, and now the reception swirled around me. Distant relatives circulating like curious fish, friends of my parents eyeing me with speculation. Alexander stood beside me in a charcoal suit, his presence a steady anchor. Theodore approached, champagne in hand, his new wife Jessica beside him. You made it, he said, surprise evident despite our email exchanges confirming my attendance. And you brought a date. Alexander, I introduced simply. Congratulations to you both. Thank you for coming, Farah, Jessica said. Your gift was so thoughtful. The leather-bound financial planning book and modest check, generous but appropriate, sat alongside crystal vases and silver serving trays on the gift table. The card attached read, wishing you a partnership built on mutual support and respect. Love, Farah. Farah. Theodore shifted uncomfortably. Listen, about the racing team. Alexander's hand touched my waist lightly, a subtle reminder of our agreement I would attend for 3 hours maximum, with no business discussions. Today is about your marriage, Theo, I interrupted gently. Let's keep it that way. Theodore's jaw tightened momentarily before he nodded. Right, of course. He glanced at Alexander. So, how did you two meet? Over birthday candles, Alexander answered smoothly, saving me from having to explain that night 3 years ago. We exchanged a few more pleasantries before they moved on to greet other guests. I exhaled slowly. Holding up? Alexander murmured. Better than expected. I scanned the room. Mother had been circling for the past 20 minutes. As if summoned, she appeared at my elbow, elegant in pale blue chiffon, her perfume a cloud of gardenias and expectation. Darling, could I steal you for just a moment? Her smile included Alexander, excluding him simultaneously. Family matters. I met Alexander's eyes. I'll be right back. Mother guided me to a quiet alcove near the dessert table, her fingers light but insistent on my arm. Once we were alone, her smile dimmed. You look lovely, Farah, she began. But I must say, your father and I were hurt by that email. Setting terms for attending your own brother's wedding, it felt very cold. I took a careful breath. I needed clarity about expectations. We're family, she said, as if this single word should override all other considerations. Family supports each other without conditions. That support should flow both ways, Mom. My voice remained steady. I love you, but I've learned to love myself too. Something flickered in her eyes. Frustration, perhaps, or the first recognition that her tactics no longer worked on me. Your father and I won't be around forever, you know. I know, I said gently, and when you need me, truly need me, I'll be there. But what you're asking for isn't need. It's entitlement. She stared at me, this daughter who no longer bent to guilt. You've changed, Farah. I have, I agreed, but I still love you. I checked my watch. We had been at the reception for 2 hours and 45 minutes. Alexander and I should be going soon. Early meeting tomorrow. Mother opened her mouth as if to protest, then closed it again. For the first time in my life, I saw her accept a boundary I had set without pushing against it. "Will you call next week?" she asked, her voice smaller than I was used to hearing. "Sunday afternoon," I confirmed. "For 30 minutes, as we agreed in the email." As we rejoined the celebration, I spotted Theodore watching us from across the room. Our eyes met, and something passed between us, not warmth exactly, but perhaps the beginning of respect. He raised his glass slightly, a gesture both acknowledgement and surrender. Alexander's hand found mine as we made our way toward the exit. "Ready?" I looked back once at my family, Mother returning to Father's side, Theodore dancing with his bride, the constellation of relatives and friends spinning in their familiar orbits. They would continue without me tonight, and I would return on my own terms another day. "Yes," I said, squeezing Alexander's hand. "I'm ready." A year later, the birthday candles flickered in my kitchen, casting a warm glow across the faces gathered around my Marble Island counter. Alexander stood beside me, his shoulder brushing mine as he adjusted his glasses and smiled. Rachel raised her wine glass, the ruby liquid catching the light. "To choosing your family and your future," she toasted, her voice steady and sure. The small gathering, 5 people who genuinely wanted to be here, erupted in cheers. My heart swelled as I surveyed my home, filled with the gentle hum of conversation and laughter. No empty chairs, no checking my phone every 5 minutes, no brittle smile pasted on my face. "Make a wish," Alexander whispered, his breath warm against my ear. I closed my eyes, but for once I struggled to think of what to wish for. My business had hit a $45 million valuation last quarter. The entrepreneurship book Alexander and I wrote sat proudly on my coffee table, its cover embossed with gold lettering. And most importantly, the gnawing ache of family disappointment had faded to a distant memory. I blew out the candles in one decisive breath. "Same restaurant as 4 years ago," Rachel observed, cutting into the chocolate cake, "but completely different energy." "Different company makes all the difference," I replied, accepting a plate from her. Later, as guests mingled in my living room, I slipped away to my study. My leather-bound journal waited in the desk drawer where I had left it this morning. I traced my fingers over today's entry. "Love doesn't require sacrifice of self." These years of therapy helped me understand that boundaries aren't walls, they're healthy fences with gates I control. My family and I maintain a cordial relationship now. I attend holiday dinners when it feels right. Theodore brings his wife. My parents ask about my business without suggesting how to run it. We've found a balance. I can love them without surrendering my peace. The doorbell chimed. A young woman named Jessica stood on my threshold, clutching a notebook. She was one of 5 entrepreneurs I mentored through my foundation. "Sorry to crash your party," she said, twisting her hands nervously. "But I've been offered a partnership with my father's business, and I don't know how to tell him I want to build something of my own." I ushered her inside. "Family business pressure?" She nodded, eyes downcast. "He's invested so much. I feel obligated. Obligation and love are different currencies," I told her, pouring her a cup of coffee. "One depletes you, the other fills you up." As I guided Jessica through separating her father's dreams from her own, I realized how far I had come. The woman who once paid off her brother's motorcycle loan without complaint now taught others to honor their own worth. My talk show appearance last month had resonated with thousands. "Forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you again," I had said, watching the studio audience nod in recognition. Those words became a lifeline for people struggling to break free from toxic patterns. In the kitchen, Alexander lit a single candle on the remaining slice of cake. We blew it out together, our fingers intertwined on the counter. Our book, dedicated to dreamers who find themselves alone at pivotal moments, had already helped countless others recognize their own worth. "Do you ever wish they had shown up that night years ago?" he asked, referring to my lonely birthday when we first met. I shook my head, a soft smile playing across my lips. "No, because if they had, I might never have met the man who taught me that kindness can come from anyone, even a stranger." Later, we stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the skyline in strokes of amber and gold. City lights began to twinkle one by one, like stars emerging in an urban sky. Alexander appeared with 2 glasses of Cabernet, the same wine I had ordered that fateful night. "Any regrets about your journey?" he asked, handing me a glass. I took a sip, savoring the rich complexity. Sometimes the loneliest birthday becomes the first gift of freedom and the beginning of a beautiful connection. The wine tasted of celebration now, not solitude. As darkness settled over the city, I realized that the birthday candles that once burned alone now lit a path forward, surrounded by people who chose to be present, not merely obligated to appear.